All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at our review. Let's put our review in front of us. Okay. Somebody want to volunteer and tell me what they feel is the definition of a square? Anybody want to volunteer? Yes, Stefan.
I said all sides are congruent and all right angles.
All four sides are congruent. Shh. Write this down. All four angles are congruent. Somebody want to volunteer and tell me what they feel is the definition of a rectangle?
A rectangle is a parallelogram with four right angles. Diagonals are congruent.
Very nice. A rectangle, I'm not sure why we're talking while I'm talking. Is it to be rude? A rectangle is a parallelogram, so that just included all the stuff that a parallelogram is. It's really nice. With four right angles. Okay. What about a parallelogram?
A quadrilateral with two pairs of parallel sides.
A quadrilateral with two sets of parallel sides. What about a rhombus?
Parallelogram with four congruent sides.
A parallelogram with four congruent sides.
Opposite angles are congruent.
That would be a key point, not a definition. But that is true. So it does say at the top, write a definition with all of its key points. So we'd have to go back. A square would also have to say it is a parallelogram, rectangle, and rhombus. We would also have to say something about diagonals, congruent, and perpendicular. And that should be good. A rectangle would have to say diagonals are congruent. Parallelogram would have to say diagonals are bisecting. Opposite angles are congruent. Opposite sides are congruent. And consecutive, what does consecutive mean again, guys? Anybody remember? Means right next to each other. Angles are supplementary. Okay, so rhombus is a parallelogram with four congruent sides. Diagonals are perpendicular. So my key points, since it's a parallelogram, I'm telling you everything that makes it a special parallelogram. Like it has four congruent sides and diagonals bisect each other. Anybody want to try trapezoid? It only has one set of parallel sides. An isosceles trapezoid is a trapezoid with one set of congruent non-parallel sides. And base angles are congruent. Kite. Two sets of congruent sides. Diagonals are perpendicular and one set of congruent angles. What's a quadrilateral? Anybody want to try? A polygon with 4 sides, that's it. And a polygon is a closed figure with at least 3 sides. Everybody feel okay about this? All right, let's turn the page over. All right, first thing, there was a small mistake on here. This one should not be here. And we should start with polygon. Then this should be quadrilateral. This should be parallelogram. This should be kite. This should be trapezoid. This should be isosceles trapezoid. What goes under parallelogram? Rectangle and what else? Rhombus. And what goes under a rectangle and rhombus? Square. You feel okay with that? So a square has everything above it has. A rectangle has everything that's above it, and so on. Right? See how there's nothing below kite? That means nothing goes with a kite. So a square is not like a kite or a trapezoid because it doesn't follow under that line. Okay, let's turn it over. Do you need it for another second? Sorry, guys. You just had to write their names. You have the definitions on the other side, so I'm assuming that you know what you're doing with those. All right, let's turn it over. We're going to start with your guys' favorite, and probably the hardest for most people. Would you guys agree? Parallelogram. So we're going to start where? We're going to draw a straight line, a point not on the line, and we connect it with a transversal. Now I'm going to take my compass.
May I borrow a compass? May I borrow?
Yes, there's compasses right up there. Okay. So I'm going to take the point of my compass and place it on the intersection of those 2 lines of my transversal. I'm going to make it about halfway, and I'm going to draw my arc. Then I'm going to pick it up, put the point on the dot, draw an arc. Then I'm going to measure from my intersection to my arc. I'm going to make another arc. Where did those 2 arcs intersect? That becomes my parallel line. Okay? Then I'm going to turn the whole thing sideways. I'm going to make a point. Make another transversal, and I'm going to do the whole thing again. I'm going to make an arc. I'm going to make an arc. Measure from here to the arc. Out here. And I've got my parallelogram. 2 sets of parallel sides. What do you think we're going to use for rectangle? Perpendicular. So, you draw a line. Perpendicular is really easy. You make this more than halfway through between the line, make a big arc. Same distance. Look, I connect those 2. and it is perpendicular. And then we just do it again, but between these 2 points. So again, that's just measuring more than halfway through. Make a big arc. Don't change the distance, but turn it and put your point on the other side. Make a big arc. Where those 2 arcs connect, intersect, you draw a line to connect them. Okay. I've got my rectangle. Okay. A rhombus is just what we did, exactly what we did for the parallelogram, except with the parallelogram, I would have had to measure this distance and make sure my point was the same distance away on all sides. So it's exactly the same. Square is exactly the same as the rectangle, except you'd have to measure the distances, make sure the distances are the same. Okay. Trapezoid, we're going to want to make a line that's parallel. So again, we draw that straight line, a dot on that line, transversal, make your arc, make your arc, distance between 2 things, put your point, make it parallel. All right, and then we're just, see how that line is going this way? We're just drawing a line that's going that opposite way, and we've got a trapezoid. Okay. For a kite, you're literally going to make a angle. Okay. I'm going to draw my arc. Going to draw my arc the opposite way, and then I'm just going to connect them so that it goes through. That's the whole thing for the compass. Okay, let's move on to, what do we got next? Patty paper? Patty paper. Alright, so let's do this with patty paper. You need to sit up, pay attention to swim. Okay. So with a parallelogram, we know we're going to have things be parallel. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a nice straight line on my patty paper. Then I'm going to fold it so that I can see through. I'm going to copy that line, but I'm going to copy it slightly off. I'm not sure why we're talking right now. Shh. So I've got parallel lines. I'm going to fold a line that's sideways. I'm going to trace that fold. And then I want it to be parallel to it. So I'm going to have to fold it so that it will be parallel. So I'm going to have to fold it on an angle so that it will show up and be parallel. And then you've got your parallelogram. Okay, rectangle is going to be easy. We're going to draw a nice straight line. We're going to fold a 90-degree angle. So we're going to make sure when I'm drawing this straight line, my ruler is, see how I make sure it's parallel to the bottom of the patty paper? So that I can fold the patty paper the opposite way and make that 90 degrees. And then I'm going to fold it in half. And I can mark it so that it's parallel. And then I can fold it in half, mark it so it's parallel, and I've got a rectangle.
Are we going to be using that on the...
Yep. For a rhombus, I would make an angle and then simply fold it and copy it. So we know all the lengths are the same. We can fold it multiple ways to make sure all the lengths are the same. Or obviously you can fold, see how the diagonals are perpendicular, and then I connect the dots. Okay. Square. I draw a line. Make it parallel. And then I've got to fold it at an angle so I know that it's the same length. And I'm going to fold it at an angle so I know that they're all four the same length. All right, trapezoid. I'm going to make a line, and then I'm going to fold it, and this is where it gets a little tricky. You're going to fold it. You want it to be parallel, but you want it to be right in the center. And then you can just connect the sides. Great. Finally, a kite. You draw an angle. You fold it in half, so it would be right down that middle. You trace it. And there's my kite. All right, let's try this with a mirror. I'm going to draw a line. Then I want it parallel to it. I'm going to draw another line. And then I want it parallel to it. And you have your parallelogram. Rectangle should be even easier. You just draw a line, draw one parallel to it. Make sure it's at a 90-degree angle. The way you do that is you line it up to be able to see the lines on the other side match up perfectly. Line it up, make sure the lines match up perfectly. Rhombus, I recommend drawing an angle. You look through and you just simply copy the angle on the other side. Okay. A square, you want to make sure all the sides are the same length. That's the only difference from a rectangle. For a trapezoid, you draw an angle and then you extend it to copy the angle. And then just make sure the top and bottom are parallel. And for a kite, again, you draw an angle. You just make sure it's wider than the one that you drew for the rhombus. Okay. All right. Let's flip it over. Look at these last two pages. Okay, if this is 20 centimeters right here, what's the length of this right here on the top? 20. So this side right here is what? 10. Good. So this is 10. This is 10. What's this length right here? 10 square root 2. Lovely. So this is 10, 10, 10, 10 square root 2. We fold 10 square root 2 in half, and what do we get? 5 square root 2. So you should be writing 4 sentences explaining how you got that. You will have to write 4 sentences on the test quiz tomorrow. Yes. Okay. So I might say I started off with 20. Then when I fold it in half, I know half of 20 is 10. Now when I fold up to make the triangle, I know that it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle, so I know this length is 10 square root 2. And then I fold 10 square root 2 in half, and I know half of 10 square root 2 is 5 square root 2. That's 4 sentences at least right there. Does that make sense? Okay, let's do the other one. I know this is 20. This is 20, so this side right here is 10. What's half of 10? So this length right here is not 5, it's what? 5? 5 square root 2. I know again that this is 20 and this is 10. Okay. What's 5 square root 2 plus 5 square root 2? 10 square root 2. This is 5, this is 5. Okay. So this whole length is 10 square root 2. This whole length is 10 square root 2. This length across the bottom is 10. Okay, so right here that this is 10 square root 2. This is half of that, so that's 5 square root 2. Can you guys see? Sort of. Okay. So this length across the bottom is 10 square root 2. This little bit right here is 5 square root 2. So this bit right here is 10 square root 2. Okay? And then again, you'd have to explain in 5 sentences, 4 or 5 sentences.
We're gonna have what questions on this quiz?